Hi, and welcome to Living in El Paso, Texas. My name is John Pena, and in this episode, we're going to talk about the cost of living in El Paso, Texas. Hi, thank you so much for checking out the YouTube channel. My name is John Pena, your favorite real estate agent in El Paso, Texas. If you are considering a move, selling your home, please consider reaching out to us. If you're looking for information about El Paso, by all means, please consider subscribing to the channel. And in this episode, we're going to talk about the cost of living in 2022 in El Paso, Texas. Now, I did a cost of living video. It was one of the first videos I ever did, and that video dropped in August of 2020, so about a year and a half ago. So a lot has changed in a year and a half, and some things haven't, but some things have. And so I wanted to give this a little bit of a refresh and stay current because you know, the economy changes a lot in a short amount of time. Not only do we have kind of rising inflation, concerns over rising interest rates, but you know, a lot can happen in a year and a half. And so let's go ahead and jump into the topic. So the way that we're going to talk about cost of living is, conveniently, there is what's called a cost of living index, and it's based off a national average of 100. And so let's say that we have a city in America, and let's call it Average USA. In this city of made-believe Average USA, it's the culmination of the national averages in one city. So it gets a score of 100 for every single category. The categories are an overall cost of living, food, groceries, housing, utilities, transportation, health, you know, all of these things that matter. Now, any number below 100 means that in that particular city, it is more affordable or less expensive for whatever category. So let's say in Average USA, you go to the grocery store and you spend $100. Okay, so in El Paso, our food and grocery score is 92. So those same $100 worth of groceries in Average USA would only cost you $92. So you'd save $8. If, let's say, you were in some other city that was a little bit more expensive, they might have a score of 120. Let's say in those exact same groceries that cost you $100 in Average USA would cost you $120 more. So any number below 100 means that it is more affordable to live in that city. Any number above 100 means that it is more expensive compared to the national average. So with that, let's jump into it. So overall, the national average in the United States is about 22% more expensive than it is in El Paso. So in general, El Paso is about 22% more affordable or less expensive than the national average. So right off the bat, if you just, take the overall score, we're doing pretty good there. When you average all the categories together, 22% less expensive, more affordable in El Paso than compared to the rest of the country. In the video, by the way, in August of 2020 that I did, I compared El Paso to some of the other cities in Texas like Houston, Dallas, Austin. So if you're, and it's still pretty relevant information if you want to check that out. But today, we're just comparing El Paso to the national average. And so you're going to find out that basically the median home cost is the biggest factor in the cost of living difference between us here in El Paso and the rest of the country. But our overall cost of living score is 82. Now, the overall category, it takes into account all of this. It totals everything as follows. It assumes that you're going to spend about 30% on housing, 15% on food and groceries, 10% on transportation, 6% on utilities, 7% on healthcare, and then about 32% on miscellaneous. Miscellaneous is like clothing, services, entertainment, okay? State and local taxes are not included in these numbers, all right? So overall score in El Paso, 82. So that's about 18% more affordable than the national average. Our food and grocery score is 92. So we're about 8% more affordable than the national average. Utilities, 97.1, a couple percentage points cheaper. Transportation, 91.2, again about 8% more affordable than the national average. Our healthcare cost score, 96.3, couple percentage points difference, and then our miscellaneous, 93.8, so about 6% more affordable. Now, all of those numbers are great. Basically, in a nutshell, it means that, yeah, for the most part, it is more affordable here in El Paso than it is, compared to that average USA. Okay, so we're doing great. But here's where we do even better. And our housing cost of living index, housing, 56.5. Now, this is a staggering number. That means that housing in El Paso is over 40% more affordable than the national average, okay? The median home cost in El Paso right now, $162,000. That exact same home in El Paso that you got for $162,000, if we went to Average USA and tried to buy that exact same home, it would cost you $292,000, okay? This is $130,000 difference for the exact same home, okay? Yes, I'm a real estate agent. Yes, I smile like this when I talk about that number because it makes it pretty easy for me to feel good about suggesting to people that are relocating to El Paso that, yeah, you know what? It's a good idea to buy a house. Yeah, even if you have to overpay $5,000, $20,000, $30,000 for a home, in the scheme of things, you are still killing it here, okay? It's a remarkable score. So that gives you kind of a general cost of living framework for where we are in El Paso. Some other little things that I was thinking about. A lot of people are talking about inflation. A lot of people are talking about gas prices. That's a good indicator of where we see our money not going as far as it used to. So I went to get gas this morning and it cost me about $3.50. So, those days of gas under $3, I'm afraid, are not around right now at least. And so can I tell a difference between right now and a year and a half ago? Not really. And if we compare right now's cost of living scores to August of 2020 when I made the very first video about cost of living, there's only a couple of things that changed. Most things stayed the same. Food, housing, utilities, transportation, miscellaneous, those numbers are exactly the same as they were a year and a half ago. 3 numbers changed. In August of 2020, the overall score for El Paso was 81.4. Now it's 82. So basically, it increased about 0.6 of a percentage point. So that's pretty minimal, right? But it does show that ever so slowly, prices are that our cost of living is starting to creep up just a little bit, right? So that wasn't a huge shocker. 2 of them were more of shockers. Our healthcare score, August of 2020, was 86.7. Right now, it's 96.3. And so I'm not exactly sure what accounts for that, 9 percentage points increase. My guess is that simply healthcare costs are increasing nationally, and that's reflected in that number. So that's just a guess, though. And then the other number that changed pretty substantially was the median home cost. In August of 2020, the median home cost was $130,700. Now, $162,100. So that's a difference of $32,000, right? That same house kind of in 2020 of August, that was $130,000. Well, now guess what? Now that house is going to cost you $162,000. I've told this story. I'll tell it again because I think it drives home the point that, look, home prices are appreciating at a pretty substantial level. The house that we bought, this house right here, in May of 2020, we paid $207,000 for it. It has 4 bedrooms and a pool. The house directly 2 doors down from me just sold. It does not have a pool, and it only has 3 bedrooms, and it was listed at $265, and it sold, in a couple of days. So conservatively speaking, my house has appreciated $70,000 or more dollars in less than 2 years. And so that's great, right, for me, because now this asset that I bought, for $207,000 is going to be valued much higher. So I've gained all of that equity in a really short amount of time. So that's just something to think about. And then I wanted to do one other thing because I think it's interesting. This morning I was listening to the radio. They did a little news story on Orlando and how these poor people that are like trying to get jobs at Disney, who aren't maybe being paid, huge salaries, they can't find housing, so they're having to find like 3, 4, 5 roommates just to cover, the rent, which is averaging around $2,200. And then when I was looking at the cost of living index data website, I saw that Orlando was the most searched city. So just for fun, let's compare El Paso, Texas's cost of living to Orlando, Florida, okay? Now, some of the numbers are pretty close. They're not that far off. So, for instance, utilities, 97 in El Paso, 102 in Orlando. That's a minimal change. Health care, 96 in El Paso, 103 in Orlando. Pretty minimal. Miscellaneous, about 94 in El Paso, 101. Now, here's where it starts to change just a little bit. So the overall cost of living score in El Paso, we said was 82. In Orlando, it's 103.3. So that's actually surprising. I thought that Orlando was gonna be more expensive than just simply 103. However, it's 26% more expensive than El Paso, okay? There's 2 numbers especially, again, that I think are going to blow your mind. Housing costs, affordability of homes in El Paso, 56.5, unbelievably low. Orlando, 106.1. Now, 100 versus 106, that's not a big difference, right? 6 percentage points. That's 87.8% though more expensive than El Paso. Right? So 56.5 versus 106.1, 88% more, right? In Orlando versus El Paso. And another one that really drives this home, median home cost here, $162,000. That exact same home in El Paso is going to cost you just over $294,000. So, like I said, I do know that a lot of people who are considering making a move to El Paso, they're not just considering El Paso, they're considering other cities. They're considering, Phoenix, Boise, Austin, Orlando. I mean, there's a lot of, we're blessed. Like, we live in a great country with a lot of pretty sweet places where you could choose to, pick up your stuff and move to. So I do know that, there are people that are checking out this channel and they're not totally sold on El Paso. And trust me, I don't want you to move to El Paso if El Paso isn't the right place for you. Honestly, in my heart of hearts, I want people to be happy, right? And if it means moving to Orlando, man, more power to you. Awesome. I lived in Florida. There were parts of it I loved, parts of it that I wasn't that crazy about. For me, we fell in love with El Paso. That doesn't mean that you're going to fall in love with El Paso, but at the same time, if it is kind of on your radar, cost of living should be something that you should think about. And just simply the fact that we all pretty much know at this point that one of the most traditional and stable ways to build wealth in our country is through the ownership of real estate, right? And if there's someplace on your radar that you're thinking about moving to, and let's face it, El Paso should stick out a little bit because of the affordability of housing, right? If you've watched this channel, you've seen that El Paso is a clean, safe, caring, fun city, okay? We're not trying to sell shacks that are like dumps, right? In like cruddy parts of town. We don't have cruddy parts of town. We don't have shacks and dumps, quite honestly. The majority of our homes are pretty darn nice, and all of the areas that we promote, the West Side, the Far East, Horizon City, the Northeast, they're really nice areas, right? So if you could potentially move to a city and your ability to own real estate is dramatically increased, for some folks, that may be a driving factor. So, like I said, I guess enough pitching about El Paso. Everybody knows that I love it, so I guess it's no shocker. So, other than that, I hope that everybody out there is doing really well. Leah wasn't in this video. She's actually at a seller's house talking about some changes that they're going to put into place to maximize the profitability of that home. And again, if you are considering making a move to El Paso, even if you just want to talk, ask questions, please consider reaching out. And I'd be super curious if you would, in the comments, tell me what city you're in and tell me how you think your city's cost of living compares to El Paso. Just, it'd be very curious. If you really want to nerd out, you can jump online and just type in cost of living, and you'll very quickly, I think I used bestplaces.net because they accumulate all the data and make it really easy to compare. So you could actually go in there. Great hint here, if you're really thinking about El Paso, go into that website, type in what city you're looking maybe to move to, El Paso, and then it gives the next input field, says what city are you coming from, and it actually also will say, hey, what do you make? What's your salary, right? And actually, it defaults to $50,000, and it'll tell you what your salary might be compared to what city you're in now, compared to when you move to El Paso. So when I compared El Paso just to the national average, it said a salary of $50,000 in El Paso should increase to just over $57,000 in average USA. So yeah. That's one thing. I'll give you even a negative of El Paso. You're going to make a little less money. If the company that you're working for, let's say you transfer here in El Paso, there's a chance that you would make less money because the company's going to take into account the cost of living, right? When I did the comparison between El Paso and Orlando, a salary of $50,000 in El Paso should increase to about $64,000 in Orlando. So, that would help, because then the company, let's say that I lived here in El Paso and then I took the same job in Orlando, my salary might see an increase, right? And that would then help me to try to cover that 88% more housing costs. Now, good luck on that, but it's still pretty interesting information. So, thank you so much. If there is anything that we can do for you, please consider reaching out, and we will see you next time.